Sometimes, the biggest cultural waves start in the most unexpected corners, maybe from tough situations even. It's like pressure creates something different. And today we're doing a deep dive into a story that really hits that point home. We're going to unpack the journey of the Water Boyz. They're this dynamic force that's managed to blend art, music, cannabis culture, creating a really unique vibe on the West Coast and honestly, way beyond. So, our mission today is to pull out the key insights from our main source here, which is excerpts from the Water Boyz, Art, Cannabis, and Culture, presented by Nug Notes. We want to get at not just what they built, but how they pulled it off, and why their story is such a powerful example of, well, resilience and creativity. As we dig in, you'll hear how these personal challenges, this strong artistic vision, and a real connection to their community kind of defined a whole movement. They turn, as the source puts it, smoke into story. So yeah, let's get into the roots of this whole thing. Okay, let's kick things off with the origin story, the Water Boyz. It starts with the co-founders, Chad and Brad. The Nug Notes excerpts give us this really vivid picture of Chad growing up in Stockton. It mentions him peeking through blinds, watching his father breathe fire.
Which is quite a phrase. It strongly suggests, early exposure to cannabis cultivation right there at home.
Exactly. And that experience, mixed with his interest in art, it became this powerful outlet for him, sort of setting the stage. And then there's Brad. Crucial from the get-go. The source calls him the animator, co-founder, and creative engine.
Right. So animation wasn't an afterthought. It was baked in from day one. It was core to their identity.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how that early, maybe slightly hidden exposure to this budding industry, it didn't scare them off. It actually seemed to fuel their creative drive. It points to this really deep personal connection to the whole thing, turning it into art right from the start. But, going from seeing it to doing it, what pushed them into the cannabis world actively. The sources must touch on that initial leap, right?
Oh, yeah, they do. The sources talk about this really intense chapter called the Calaveras County Gauntlet. Chad went after the green rush there.
The green rush, right. But it went sour, fast. The county regulations changed, licenses got yanked, partners just disappeared. Doors locked.
Wow. So a complete collapse.
Totally. And it wasn't just business. The source stresses the personal and financial, hit a fire evacuation, smoke damage to everything, and this unbelievable $4,000 PG&E bill on top of it all.
Oof. That's rough.
But this is where it gets really interesting, that resilience piece. Because after that massive setback, the source says Chad just went back at it.
Okay.
Didn't build some fancy new facility, though. He set up again in a basement with just 4 lights.
4 lights. Back to basics.
Right. And that period, born out of necessity really, pushed him into focusing heavily on rosin runs. It signals this hands-on, super quality-focused approach, driven by passion, because what else was there?
That is incredibly telling. Connecting the dots here, this isn't just a story about bouncing back from failure. That huge loss in Calaveras, followed by stripping everything back to 4 lights in a basement. It wasn't just adversity. It sounds like it forced a reset.
Yeah, like it clarified things.
Exactly. It crystallized their core values. Yeah. That whole experience, that failure, it became the bedrock for their authenticity, their commitment to craft. It shows how sometimes the biggest limitations can actually forge the clearest vision. So for you listening, what does that moment tell you about the values that would make the Water Boyz stick around? Was it strategy or just getting back to basics?
The sources definitely lean towards getting back to basics. That shift to rosin runs, it feels like rejecting the whole rush idea and focusing purely on quality, like it was art itself. So, okay, they've got this resilience, this artistic drive forged in the fire. How do they actually launch publicly? Nug Notes is super clear. Cartoons first.
Cartoons first. Interesting.
Yeah, Brad was apparently animating like crazy, nonstop, creating characters, skits. The source calls it the brand DNA of Water Boyz. It wasn't just some side thing. It was the brand, visually from the start. And then music naturally followed because, well, the tunes needed soundtracks. It led pretty quickly to making tracks. The source gives examples. Dabs on Me was their first collab, then Give Me the Hash, using a Slater beat. And Give Me the Hash actually did really well as a trailer anthem. Cleared over 20,000 streams, which, back then, was solid proof that this mix of visuals and sound was working. It wasn't just one or the other, it was the combination.
Right, which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? For you listening, think about it. The internet's already packed with stuff. What was it about this specific blend, this kind of grassroots animation and music, that just clicked with people so quickly?
Yeah, what was the magic ingredient?
It suggests something deeper than just liking cartoons or music, right?
Yeah.
It points to connecting with that authentic story, that unique vibe they were putting out there. What do you think made that fusion catch on like it did?
I think it probably felt real, you know? Not too polished or corporate. Okay, moving the story along, let's bring in the third member who really completed the trio. CALI. His backstory, according to the sources, is just as interesting and also rooted deep in that California culture.
Okay, CALI.
Yeah, raised in Lotus Stockton. The material says he had this mix of talents. Good at football, played in the band, but also really sharp on the freestyle rap scene.
Diverse skills.
Definitely. But his youth had some major challenges, too. The sources mention he lost his dad at 16, left school at 17. Still, that entrepreneurial drive was there early. He apparently dropped $200 on a showcase spot.
A gamble.
And it paid off immediately. Led to him freestyling right then and there with Rappin Forte.
Wow, okay. Instant connection.
Yeah, pretty wild. And from there, the sources say his rise in music was quick, connecting with big names like E40 and Snoop.
Heavy hitters.
Right. Signed deals, toured. But then he made this very deliberate move to go independent.
Yeah, interesting. Why?
Seems like foresight, self-reliance. He didn't just leave. He built his own setup, created a Chico content house with studios and depths, basically, his own production resources.
Smart. Building infrastructure.
Totally. And then the sources pinpoint the moment he linked up with the boys right before Terp Wars. That's when the three-man team really locked in.
That's fascinating. LT Kali's path, the hustle, the adversity, building his own independent thing, it sounds so similar to Chad and Brad's DIY spirit.
It really does.
It doesn't seem like just a collaboration then, more like a natural convergence. Similar mindsets, different but complementary skills coming together.
Yeah.
How do you see that fusion working based on the source? How did these three paths, all marked by grit and going their own way, create something bigger together?
I think that shared background, overcoming stuff independently, probably meant they just got each other. They were on the same wavelength about building something real. And with that team fully formed, yeah, the creative output just exploded. They took that cartoon world even further, reached more people. The tunes scaled up, as the source puts it.
Send up how?
With bigger projects like Terp Wars and Terp Wars 2. These weren't just random shorts. They had specific characters, collabs with people like Trap House Coda and Hank Trill. They were building out this whole fictional universe.
Right, expanding the lore.
Exactly. And then they broadened it even more, shifted west thematically with Hash Cowboys. It shows they weren't afraid to evolve the story, the world, the themes. But the really key thing the excerpts emphasize is how tightly integrated everything was. Every skit tied to an album, every drop to a soundtrack.
Oh, that cross-media synergy.
Yeah, like a masterclass in it.
Okay.
Making this really immersive, connected world for their audience.
That's more than just clever marketing, isn't it? It's about crafting a whole universe. Big companies try for that kind of cohesion and often miss. So what made the Water Boyz approach different from just, putting out content? And for you listening, does that kind of interconnectedness make you feel more invested in a brand compared to just standalone stuff? It feels deliberate, like building a world, not just selling things.
Yeah, that consistent world building feels key. And it wasn't just contained within their own creations. They started making real noise in the wider culture, too, getting recognition, even setting standards, like their collab with West Coast Alchemy. That partnership led to actual awards, second place rosin, fifth place melt with Starburst.
Tangible proof of quality?
Right, specific wins that show their stuff was top tier. And the sources mention other big collabs too, with Hosebeest, Mountain Grease, and Trilogy710, shows their network and influence were growing.
Okay, so they're respected by their peers.
Definitely. And it went beyond making stuff. They were judging events like Ego Clash. That's a big kind of respect for their expertise. Plus, shooting ads for Dabrite, that puts them right at the center as influential figures in that space. But it wasn't all industry stuff. They were actively shaping the culture by laying out sesh rules.
Sesh rules, like what?
Things like no reheats, no dirty ISO, no chaz. Basically, setting standards for quality and respect within the dab community, showing real leadership, not just entertainment.
That's really noteworthy. They weren't just in the culture. They were helping define it, elevate it. By setting standards, earning that respect through quality and collabs, they became more than creators. They were like cultural guides, almost. Which raises a point for you, the listener. How does a subculture benefit when its own members, like the Water Boyz, take the lead in defining quality and etiquette instead of just following trends? What does that kind of internal leadership do for the health and maybe the staying power of a movement?
It feels like it builds a stronger foundation, right?
Yeah.
Shared values, community pride. And that reach wasn't just industry insiders or online, it connected directly with fans. The premiere at the Crest Theatre, that's a big public step. Getting recognition as artists beyond just the niche scene.
Right, mainstream acknowledgement.
And the sources say their influence spread geographically too, reaching fans in Boston and New York City, so clearly not just a West Coast thing anymore. National appeal.
Wow. Coast to coast.
And the fans were into it. The excerpts talk about people made memes, they rapped lyrics, they handed gear to the boys. Just shows a really passionate, active fan base.
That's real engagement.
And the output, get this, more than 100 tracks in under 2 years.
100 tracks. That's insane productivity.
Incredible work ethic, right? And they're still going. Their current release is the 20 Dabs Deluxe album, out now on, all streaming platforms like Spotify.
Yep.
They give shout-outs to collaborators too. Zen Garden, Chad, LT Collie, Brad, Colt 45, Big Sammy, Mabo Rabo, and Beto 916.
Keeping the momentum.
So you look at all this, the journey, the art, the music, the impact. What's the core idea driving it? The sources spell out the Water Boyz philosophy. Consistency over clout.
Consistency over cloud. I like that.
Their belief, stated right there, is dab culture isn't hype, it's work. And their approach, add value first, stay original, respect the sesh, seems like those principles guided everything. And the line that just sums it all up distills their whole story. From basements to ego clash, they turn smoke into story.
That philosophy, consistency over cloud.
Yeah.
Hitting it right after talking about their journey from the basement. That's powerful. It's like a direct challenge to the whole instant fame, viral trend thing we see so much.
Totally.
So for you listening, think about this. In a time where everything feels like chasing the next big temporary thing, what does the sustained success of the Water Boyz, built on hard work, being real, respecting the craft and the community, what does that tell us about creating something that lasts versus just being popular for a minute? It really speaks volumes about building a legacy, not just a brand.
Well said. It proves that putting in the work and creating real value usually wins out in the long run. So yeah. From Chad peeking through blinds, Brad animating relentlessly, LT Collie grinding from freestyle stages to running his own show, the Water Boyz wove this incredible tapestry. Art, music, cannabis culture, all interconnected.
Absolutely. We've traced how that resilience, through fire, floods, and four lights, and that commitment to cartoons before cuts, plus that core belief in consistency over cloud, let them not just join a movement, but actually help steer it. They really did turn every setback, every creative idea into another part of their story.
Right.
It just shows the power of having an authentic vision and just sticking with it.
And you heard how something strong, a real brand, a real community can rise up even from really tough beginnings, defining a whole scene just by being authentic and incredibly creative. It's proof of what happens when you believe in what you're doing and commit to the craft.
And the sources leave us with this final kind of provocative thought. Mama said hash is the devil. Now, after everything we've talked about today, the art they made, the community they built, their success, that massive creative output, turning smoke into story. What does that simple, almost rebellious phrase actually mean when you put it against the backdrop of the Water Boyz' whole journey and impact?
Yeah.
It sort of challenges you, doesn't it? To look past the easy assumptions and find the real story, the art, the connection in places you might not expect.